The night Sarah clicked the confirm button. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped her phone because desperation has a sound and it was pounding in her ears like a second heartbeat. Rent was late again. The hospital bills for her mother sat unopened on the kitchen table. And the quiet apartment in Ohio felt too heavy for one person to carry alone. She told herself it was just one night, a controlled choice, a transaction that would end by morning. Yet something deep inside her whispered the question she didn't want to hear. What if this were you? Pushed to the edge, choosing between pride and survival, and how would you judge yourself afterward? Michael had not worn his tailored suits in months. Not since the day his wife's funeral blurred into a memory of rain and folded flags. The billionaire CEO the world admired had disappeared behind worn jeans, a borrowed sedan, and a carefully crafted profile that said, "Single dad, recently widowed, needing quick cash." In a quiet hotel outside Columbus, he waited, not because he wanted money, but because grief had left him hollow and curious about how invisible a man could become when stripped of power. He wondered if anyone would see the exhaustion in his eyes or the father who read bedtime stories every night to a 7-year-old boy named Noah. He wondered what choice you would make if loneliness felt heavier than truth. Sarah arrived late, apologizing to no one, her coat thin against the winter air, her courage thinner still. She expected something transactional, a brief awkward exchange followed by a blur she could forget. Instead, she noticed the tired gentleness in Michael's face. The way he folded his hands as if praying without words, the silence that felt safer than questions. They sat together, two strangers wrapped in their own failures, and time slowed into something almost kind. If you were in that room, would you have rushed it, or would you have let the quiet tell its story? Nothing explicit happened, not in the way Sarah had feared or prepared for. They talked without speaking, sharing pain through posture and breath, finding comfort in the simple act of being seen. Michael showed her a photo of Noah on his phone, a gap-toothed smile missing innocence he was trying so hard to protect. Sarah felt a crack in her armor, then a softening that scared her more than the money ever had. She realized how close she was to choosing numbness over humanity, and how easily that choice could follow her forever. By morning, snow brushed the windows, and the envelope on the table felt heavier than it should have. Michael left early, leaving behind payment that was more than agreed upon and a quiet thank you written on a scrap of hotel paper. Sarah watched the door close and felt an unexpected ache, like she had missed something important without knowing what it was. She told herself this was good, clean, finished. Life went on, didn't it? Weeks passed and the money solved immediate problems, but left deeper ones untouched. Sarah found herself thinking of the man who listened without asking, the child who smiled from a cracked phone screen. She started volunteering at her church's food pantry, not out of redemption, but because she needed to feel useful again. Michael returned to his glass offices in New York, signing deals and smiling for cameras. Yet every night, he tucked Noah into bed with a heaviness that no success could lift. He had learned something dangerous in that hotel room. That connection could exist without power, and he didn't know how to reconcile that with his world. Fate has a way of circling back when hearts are unfinished. Sarah took a job interview months later with a national foundation, expanding into Ohio, never bothering to research the board because she didn't believe in luck anymore. The conference room felt too bright, too polished. And when Michael walked in wearing the suit she had never seen, recognition hit her like a held breath released too fast. He recognized her too, not with shock, but with a softness that steadied the room. No words were exchanged about the night that had changed them both, but everything unsaid filled the space between them. Michael offered her the job based on merit, but also on something harder to define, a belief that broken beginnings could still lead somewhere honest. Sarah accepted, knowing this choice was different because it asked for her whole self, not just survival. Over time, they worked side by side, building trust slowly, carefully, like people who knew the cost of rushing. Noah met Sarah on a warm spring afternoon, and something gentle settled into place when he took her hand without hesitation, as if children knew the truth adults spent years avoiding. Life did not transform into a fairy tale, but it grew kinder. Michael confessed everything one evening in a quiet park. The disguise, the wealth, the reasons he had hidden. Sarah listened, anger flickering briefly before giving way to understanding because she knew what it meant to hide when the world felt unsafe. They chose honesty from that day forward, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Years later, when Sarah looked back at the night that once filled her with shame, she saw it differently. It was not the night she lost herself, but the night she paused long enough to find a better path. Michael learned that power meant nothing without presence. And Noah grew up watching two adults choose compassion over convenience. If this were your story, would you dare to believe that your lowest moment could still be the doorway to something meaningful? Before the final moments of this story settle in your heart, take a second and tell us in the comments what choice you think you would have made if you were in Sarah's place that night. And if this story truly touched your heart, gently reminding you of kindness, second chances, and unseen struggles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories so more stories like this can find the people who need them most.